it's very common that the standard slide movement for engagement when somebody turns to your side is just a simple turn out. Okay? The problem with that turnout is that you're actually one step behind the person, especially if you're turning into their shield. If I go here and he's turning, this is exactly where I want him. I want to try to get his feet linear so he's not able to use his hips. In this case, Jason's going to fix, instead of turning, he's going to slide with me. All through those slides, Jason can throw a shot because he's always in perfect guard. You also notice the exercise in the slide is to make sure you don't use big feet. If Jason uses too big of a foot on the slide, then I should be over here before he knows it. By keeping small feet, if I do that, you notice he can shift right back immediately. So you got to be careful. Everything should be small. A block should be small. Foot movement should be small. Even if it takes more than one to get to where you want to go. The slide allows for constant engagement. So Jason's going to move. Jason actually took a slight step forward in his slide. You'll find that if your shoulders are leaning, and he slides, and I'll slide, I tend to step forward, and our engagement will end up too close. You want to make sure that your center is in your hips. If there's a line, sometimes I use a line on the ground, and we slide perfectly sideways. And we try to keep the head as flat as possible across that scenario. So, again, with the slide, the idea is to keep constant tension on your opponent without closing range. Even if your opponent tends to close into your range, you can always slide slightly back. The piece there is that you can constantly provide tension on your opponent without actually being in range. So be careful that if you find yourself too close after each slide, most likely your shoulders are slightly tilted forward and you're actually stepping into your slide. Okay, next thing we're going to talk about is a little bit of feet here. I watch my opponent's feet quite a bit. Just because with peripheral vision, I'm not staring at your feet, because if you're staring at your feet, your center is probably way over your shoulder. But what I'm looking for is that my opponent allows me to break around his outside foot. If you watch any boxing match, go ahead and get any limit stance. Okay? So, if I can get in a place where his foot is between my feet, that line of that foot is between my feet, his shoulder ends up behind him, and this allows for reps. I put a little tension over here, and hook under here. I'll show you that in slow motion. So his foot is linear between my feet. I stomp this foot. I don't step, because then I lose my second step. I give a slight stomp and lean to that elbow, making it look like I'm going to throw a side, and hook back. Large step right to the side of his foot. Okay, again, the foot's set up. I push to his side to turn his body. Hook under. I'm going to do it a little better with the shield and blades. Ready? If you're a taller person, this is actually where I got this shot. The idea is to, instead of throwing low, because you have to get farther under, you actually make that step, ready? And throw it over here. So you throw it over the top shoulder. Since you're a taller person, it's easier to reach over the shield. Shorter, underneath, taller, over the shoulder. Alright? So, to get his feet in that place, this is what we do. I lean over here. You notice how his foot automatically adjusted. We'll do it again. His feet are in a good place. Give him some, look how I step just a little sideways. I can also just lean and change my foot. Now look where I am. So I can put his foot where I want it. The trick is to make sure he doesn't know what's going on. Some pressure, here I am. Okay? Even half a step, and then a little bit more of a step. He's going to adjust, but he may not adjust fully. The more you can line his feet and his shoulders linearly to you, the harder it is for him to hit you. Now to throw a shot, he has no hip. He can't actually throw his hip at me. It's all circular with the shoulder and his range is much shorter. He's fighting his own body because it's all twisted. In boxing, you see the same thing. The job is to own the outside foot, especially if you're going to hit and like punch me. So his foot's inside. He throws a shot. His hip actually over-rotates. If my foot's here and I throw a shot, it's straight into it. The idea is if I'm over here and I throw this shot and my feet are inside his, I'm turning the wrong way. I'm not turning into my opponent. Same thing happens with the other hand. If I'm over here and I throw this jab straight in, my neck is driving in, and I throw this round, it's out. If I'm here, my jab is off, and if I throw this, I'm passing across that part of the body. This is the reason why we tend to keep that person in the V of the feet. So if he moves, he's still in my V of the feet. Move again, still in the V of the feet. Okay, again, we're talking about the V of the feet. The idea here is now to break my opponent and turn his upper body. If we can turn the upper body, we can do stuff. So, if I notice when I apply pressure over here, he gets a turn in the body, or if I step and he turns without moving his feet, that creates opportunity because it turns his center. So here's an example of that. You just turn your body. Okay? Now he's twisted up, I have opportunity. My feet are in a V, where's his? We can do it the other way. Again, you notice my feet are here. His body is actually in the wrong location. Shoulder's actually close to me, but now he has no power because his hip is turned the wrong way. So feet in the fight are the fight. We can control so much more with our feet than just with throwing a sword. The idea is your opponent's going to tell you where to hit him. If I give him pressure on one side and he dives for it, then I know to hit him on the other side. If I give him pressure and he slides with it, then I can know I have more work to do. This fight isn't to finish it right away. I don't have to go out there and throw right away. The idea is to throw when you have to. The sword is just the end of a fight. The fight is all geared and built from your body and your feet. Along with feet comes bending of the knee. That should be always natural because that your power comes from the ground. All right, we're going to show you an exercise Luke Paul calls force. I call tension. Really, it's talking about distance, but this is the dance of the fight. So what we're going to try to do is keep perfect distance with really slow movement at the beginning of this. So the exercise, we get in our stance, and I provide tension and he pulls. And then I pull back and pull in. I step a half step, he steps a half step back out. Out, he goes forward. I slide sideways, he slides. Slide, forward, there we go, good. And you can cross your feet here. Okay, stay with me, there we go. Good. That's the way. Through this whole exercise, the idea is to be in a place in that gray range we talked about before. That gray range is that perfect distance where if I'm here and I lean away, I'm out of range. But if I lean here, I'm in range. This is the place where I can constantly push tension. Then I'm out, and I'm in. At any given point, I can throw a shot in there just by leaning onto my front leg and going into that front leg with the hip, not with the shoulders, but with the hip. I lean over that front leg, and I take away range by leaning over that back knee. Forward, back. We're going to do a little bit more work. Again, just lead with a push, good, and pull. And there we go, step. Nice and slow so your opponent gets used to this dance. When you first learn how to dance, you actually do things slow and counted. Good. This you learn how to read your opponent's pressure as they're coming towards you. Very nice, Jason. All right, the next piece we're going to show you is something that we've just been doing here for probably about 3 years, maybe 2.5 years, and that is breaking tension. We already do that. Most people already do that in fights in a lot of different ways. When you have an opponent running down on you and you're running backwards, and then you stop suddenly, you break. Essentially what you're doing is you have constant tension while you're running backwards, and then you break it, and then you have opportunity. So in this case, what we're going to do is use constant breaking tension to create opportunity. The hard part in this is that the areas in which you generate the flow or the throw is smaller. So you have to really be aware of what is happening and what you are opening. So we're going to do a little bit of that with Sword and Shield here and give you a feel for how it looks. It should look a lot like some good boxers. If you look at Pacquiao or some of those guys, they have a lot of breaking tension. All right, so here we're going to show some breaking tension. First, we're going to start with good tension into a shot. This is how we look normally. So I'm pushing his arm up to the head, into the leg, and I'm changing constantly until I can figure out how to throw something. In this case, what I do is I look here, and then I just change my hand. Whoops. Now we have so a lot of this, pushing that arm, step into the shield. Then push that tempo. Change it up. If your opponent gets comfortable, all you do is change your angle. Now in that case, you saw him become very uncomfortable. That shows me there's an opportunity in that strike. Okay, so we're going to do that strike again real quick. Okay? So I do the same thing, usually a couple more passes later when they're not ready for it. So find those uncomfortable areas for your opponent. Opponent that's running at you or wants to track you down, stand next to the elbow. Okay? If they still stay on you, let them run you down, stop. Go. Even the easier way. This is all natural. Opponent comes at you. Give him a head and you can open up later. So tension isn't only developed with your feet, but with tension in your real body. The key here is to find those places to relax and breathe in between. We don't want that with our opponent though. We want to work our opponent and take the breath out of them as much as possible. So when they're tired and walking backwards, you breathe as you walk forward. We'll show you an example here. If I'm fighting Jason, and he wants to make room because then I get right up into him. You notice, I can even have my shield down. Because I know where that is. You notice every time he wants to rest, I make sure that I step back into a position that's dangerous. All right, so here we're going to talk about the question you had about the lazy arm shot and developing enough tension on that arm, or enough power with that lazy arm. We have to remember with the lazy arm, it's a lot like Bruce Lee's 1-inch punch. At the beginning, it's all about the flow of the sword. At the end, it's the whip, okay? That's where the power is generated at the very end. So here's the lazy arm shot. I'm nice here, I can tension up, and then I relax for a second. Watch him relax. Okay, that's a soft. Now, I'll throw a little harder. Okay, all you do is you drop and push straight out. There is enough power in there to at least make your opponent understand what's there. I'm not trying to hit him hard, he has no forearm protection, but to generate power, watch my hip on this. You're generating power going into the ground. Both knees dropping in and hard, your shoulder pumps up. So, and relax. Okay? You hear me yell sometimes at the end of these. Bang, or kia, or breathe out hard. What that does is relaxes your body, expels all the energy you can. When you hold tension in your body, you actually hold power back. So by breathing out with your blows, you allow all that power to flow through you. Okay, lazy arm shot. Again, you notice, drop straight out.